Article 700 addresses emergency systems, while Article 701 covers legally required standby systems. To understand the difference, firstly, let's define each article. Article 700 applies to systems that provide essential services during an emergency. Examples include exit lighting, fire alarm systems, and emergency generators. These systems must be separate from the normal power supply and have redundant components. Article 701 applies to systems that are required by law to operate in the event of a power failure. Examples include hospital equipment, elevator lighting, and fire suppression systems. These systems must be connected to a separate emergency power source and have specific transfer requirements. The key differences lie in the purpose, power source transfer requirements, and redundancy. For purpose, Article 700 provides essential services during an emergency. Article 701 ensures compliance with legal requirements. For power source, Article 700 uses a separate power supply with redundancy. Article 701 uses a separate emergency power source. For transfer requirements, Article 700 does not specify transfer requirements. Article 701 requires specific transfer requirements. For redundancy, Article 700 requires redundancy. Article 701 does not specify redundancy. To determine which article applies, firstly, consider legal requirements. If the system is required by law to operate during a power failure, use Article 701. Secondly, assess essential operation. If the system is not legally required but is necessary for the safe operation of the building during an emergency, use Article 700. Here is an example. An office building has an emergency generator. The generator is legally required to supply power to the fire sprinkler system, so Article 701 would apply. However, the generator also powers the exit lighting, which is not legally required but is necessary for the safe evacuation of the building during an emergency. Therefore, Article 700 would also apply to the portion of the generator system that powers the exit lighting. In more detail, Article 700 of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, specifically addresses emergency systems. These are electrical systems designed to automatically supply illumination, power, or both, to critical areas and equipment in the event of failure of the normal power supply. The primary purpose of emergency systems is to ensure the safety of people and property. This includes, but isn't limited to, essential functions such as lighting for egress, fire detection and alarm systems, and critical process equipment that must continue to operate to prevent hazards. Legally required standby systems, as covered in Article 701 of the NEC, are those systems that are mandated by law or by a governmental agency to serve specific loads or functions. These systems are intended to provide power to equipment or facilities that, if stopped, could create a hazard or hamper rescue or firefighting operations. Common examples include emergency lighting and ventilation in certain types of occupancies, fire pumps, and other systems essential for the safety and operation of a facility as determined by local codes or regulations. The NEC provides detailed requirements for the installation, wiring, and operation of both emergency and legally required standby systems to ensure reliability and safety. The first notable difference between Article 700 and Article 701 lies in their purpose and scope. Article 700 focuses on life safety and immediate hazard prevention. It covers systems that are essential for the safe evacuation and continued operation of critical functions during an emergency. Article 701, on the other hand, addresses systems required by law to operate in the event of a power outage, which may not be directly related to immediate life safety but are necessary for the overall safety and operational continuity of a facility. Secondly, the level of reliability and redundancy required for emergency systems under Article 700 is generally higher than that for legally required standby systems under Article 701. Emergency systems must have a high degree of reliability and often require redundant components or backup power sources to ensure continuous operation during an emergency. This is because the failure of an emergency system could have immediate and severe consequences for life safety. Legally required standby systems, while still requiring a reliable power source, may not necessarily need the same level of redundancy as emergency systems. Thirdly, the testing and maintenance requirements for emergency systems under Article 700 are typically more stringent than those for legally required standby systems under Article 701. Emergency systems must be regularly tested and maintained to ensure that they will operate reliably when needed. This includes periodic testing of generators, transfer switches, and other components of the system. Legally required standby systems also require testing and maintenance, but the frequency and scope of these activities may be less rigorous than those for emergency systems. Now let's delve into the specific requirements outlined in each article. Article 700 mandates that emergency systems be designed and installed to provide power within a specified time frame after the loss of normal power. This time frame is typically 10 seconds, although it may vary depending on the application and local codes. The article also requires that emergency systems be supplied from a separate and independent power source, such as a generator or battery system that is capable of providing power for a minimum duration, typically 90 minutes to several hours, depending on the occupancy and application. Furthermore, Article 700 specifies the types of equipment and circuits that are permitted to be connected to the emergency system. This includes emergency lighting, fire alarm systems, exit signs, and other essential loads. The article also prohibits the connection of non-essential loads to the emergency system to ensure that the system is not overloaded during an emergency. Article 701 outlines the requirements for legally required standby systems, including the types of loads that must be connected to the system, the required transfer time, and the minimum duration of power supply. The article also specifies the types of power sources that are permitted for legally required standby systems, such as generators, batteries, and uninterruptible power supplies. In addition, Article 701 addresses the coordination of legally required standby systems with other emergency and standby systems in the facility. This includes ensuring that the systems are properly interconnected and that they do not interfere with each other's operation. To further illustrate the differences between Article 700 and Article 701, let's consider some practical examples. In a hospital, emergency systems under Article 700 would include lighting for exit corridors, operating rooms, and intensive care units, as well as power for critical medical equipment such as ventilators and heart monitors. Legally required standby systems under Article 701 might include power for elevators, fire pumps, and other systems necessary for the safe operation of the hospital during a power outage. In a high-rise office building, emergency systems under Article 700 would include lighting for exit stairwells, fire alarm systems, and emergency voice communication systems. Legally required standby systems under Article 701 might include power for elevators, ventilation systems, and computer systems that are essential for business operations. The application of Article 700 versus Article 701 depends on the specific requirements of the occupancy, the applicable codes and regulations, and the nature of the loads being served. It is essential to carefully evaluate these factors to determine which article applies and to ensure that the electrical systems are designed and installed in accordance with the applicable requirements. Here are some additional points to consider when applying Article 700 and Article 701. Firstly, it is important to consult with a qualified electrical engineer or other professional who is familiar with the NEC and local codes to ensure that the electrical systems are designed and installed in compliance with all applicable requirements. Secondly, it is essential to maintain accurate and up-to-date documentation of the electrical systems, including drawings, specifications, and test reports. This documentation is necessary for verifying compliance with the NEC and for troubleshooting and maintaining the systems over time. Thirdly, it is crucial to provide adequate training to personnel who are responsible for operating and maintaining the electrical systems. This training should cover the proper operation of the systems, the procedures for testing and maintaining the systems, and the steps to take in the event of an emergency. By following these guidelines and adhering to the requirements of Article 700 and Article 701, it is possible to ensure the safety and reliability of electrical systems in a wide range of applications. In summary, Article 700 of the NEC covers emergency systems that are essential for life safety and immediate hazard prevention, while Article 701 addresses legally required standby systems that are mandated by law or governmental agencies. The key differences between the two articles lie in their purpose, scope, level of reliability, and testing and maintenance requirements. Understanding these differences is crucial for designing and installing electrical systems that comply with the NEC and ensure the safety and operational continuity of facilities. The specific transfer requirements mentioned for Article 701, legally required standby systems, are determined by the application and the authority having jurisdiction. The NEC doesn't dictate specific transfer times, but rather provides general guidelines, leaving the precise requirements to other codes, standards, or local regulations. For example, hospitals might have stricter transfer time requirements for emergency power systems than a commercial building requiring standby power for elevators. These transfer requirements ensure a smooth transition to the alternate power source, minimizing disruption to critical loads. Redundancy, a key aspect of Article 700 emergency systems, often involves having multiple backup power sources, such as a generator and a battery system, or redundant components within the system, such as dual transfer switches. This redundancy ensures that the emergency system will continue to operate even if one component fails. While Article 701 doesn't explicitly mandate redundancy, it is often a good practice to incorporate some level of backup to enhance the reliability of legally required standby systems. When applying these articles, it's crucial to consider the potential consequences of a power failure and the specific needs of the facility. A risk assessment can help determine the appropriate level of reliability and redundancy for each system. The authority having jurisdiction, often a local building or electrical inspector, plays a vital role in enforcing the NEC and ensuring that electrical installations meet the required safety standards. Consulting with the authority having jurisdiction early in the design process can help avoid potential problems and ensure a smooth inspection process. Article 700 emergency systems are those that are essential for safety to human life. Article 701 legally required systems are for other systems in case of power failures that are legally required for a building to still operate. It's all about following the rules. These rules include legally mandated equipment to have a source of power. If the system is not legally required but is necessary for the safe operation of the building during an emergency, Article 700 applies. If the system is required by law to operate during a power failure, Article 701 applies.